Welcome to another edition of Behind the Visual. I am your host, advertising and lifestyle photographer, Mark Hansen, and this is the podcast where I interview all those people responsible for the images and videos you see out in your world every single day. And today, my guest is Tracey Woods. And Tracey is a former senior photo editor for Essence Magazine. She is now a creative producer, visual director, and photo consultant and artist. She's done some really cool stuff. She did the most recent Macy store window displays since they reopened. So you can go check those out. We'll actually show those to you in the podcast. So she's done a great job on that. She has an MFA in photography, which she wasn't expecting to get. That was something that happened later on in college. And she was the freelance editor. She went into Essence as a freelance photo editor for about a 2-3 month period and ended up being there for 13 years. So evidently she was very good at her job. She's worked with Michelle Obama, Hillary Clinton. She's worked with Janet Jackson. She got a great story about learning to dance from Janet Jackson's backup dancers. And let's see, lots of other stuff. God, there's a lot to talk about here. So check it out, and I hope you enjoy this one. Thank you for doing this. I really appreciate it. I got your name from Maria Avatabile. So she told me all about you and hit you up. So I appreciate you doing it. This is very cool. I've never talked to anybody from a magazine, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I guess, most people were photographers are from the ad side.
Yeah. So I've worked with magazines. I've just never talked to anybody that's from the magazine side. So this will be cool.
Oh, great.
Yeah. Well, first of all, let's figure it out. Tell me how you ended up at Essence. And then, so let's go from as a kid, were you interested in this kind of stuff? Did you?
No, I wasn't interested in photography until I got to college. I was always interested in art and drawing and design. And in undergrad, I studied graphic design, and I took a photography course my second semester, my sophomore year, and fell in love with it. And from there, I still was pursuing design, but also kind of using photography a lot and pursuing photography. I ended up going to grad school for photography. I went to Pratt.
Oh, wow.
And got my MFA in photography. And with that, and I think this is probably true for a lot of artists and grad students. You just think, oh, I'm going to be famous and everyone's going to want to buy my work and see my work, and
Yep.
You graduate and realize that's not how the world works.
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah.
And I assisted for a short period of time and realized really quickly I did not like it. I did not like that kind of commercial side and being in front of the camera like that. And I became a studio manager for one of the photographers I assisted. And I learned the photography business that way. And it was really, there were a lot of things I didn't know.
Yeah.
And I really just learned how to run a photography business.
Which I think is important. And I think a lot of photographers coming out of school or just starting their own business or starting to work, they don't have a clue how to run a business.
Not at all. I had no clue, just from everything from marketing yourself to, putting together your portfolio, meeting with agents, meeting with clients. It's, until you see it, you kind of don't know. So, I always suggest if you're not going to assist, then if you can work in a studio somehow, that would be amazing for any photographer.
Yeah, I agree completely. Because I didn't assist, I didn't work in a studio. So I just kind of learned it by asking questions from friends. And it took a long time for me to figure it all out. It would have been nice to have worked in a studio and figured out all that stuff ahead of time.
It's a big help. From that, I started working with a bunch of different reps. The photographer that I worked with, his rep, and then I worked with other photographers and reps, and their body of work was diverse. So it was really eye-opening for me as well.
Well, that's good. So So the producer thing, I mean, the studio manager thing was obviously important.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
led into producing because I started producing all the shoots for these photographers and really just learning how to hone my, I guess, production skills.
Yeah. So were you working with other agents? So you had your photographer that you were the studio manager for, but then you were working. So did
I
you?
worked with his rep. I started working with his rep exclusively, and then she left the business. And when I left that photographer, I worked with a couple of different other reps and also photographers.
Okay.
And I kind of just, I did whatever,
Yeah.
because I think my background was diverse, that I had production, I had working with a rep, also helped in dealing with ad agencies. We did a lot of ad agency jobs, and it just helped to kind of navigate to different avenues. So with that, I freelanced for a bit. I did photo research. I did production work. Whatever you needed me to do, I could do.
Wow, you did it all. God, you pretty much have done everything then when it comes to the whole photo side of it.
Yeah,
Sounds
and I
like.
think it helped that I came from the photographer side, so I understood both sides.
Yeah, absolutely. So is that how you ended up getting the job at Essence because you already had all that background?
I had that background, and I had been freelancing for a few years at a couple of different publications, at a publishing house, and with the reps. And when the Essence job came up, I knew the person who was leaving,
Oh, that's nice.
and I knew somebody else there. So they recommended me. They needed someone just for a quick fill in because the person whose job I ended up taking over was moving cross country. So they needed someone immediately. And it happened to be the day they called me, the job that I was on ended. It's like, oh, my job just ended.
Oh,
I
that's
can come
good.
in and meet the bosses. I came in, the next day, met the creative director and the photo director. They seemed to like me, and it was only supposed to be like a month or 2 months.
God, and how long did you end up being there total?
13 years.
Oh, that's a little more than a few months.
A lot longer than a few months.
So did you start off as the photo editor or
I
what?
started out as a freelance contract photo editor.
Okay.
Yeah, and after a couple of months, the creative director at the time liked me, but at the time, Essence was part of Time Inc., and Time Inc. had a hiring freeze.
Oh,
It was also kind of the part of publishing where a lot of magazines were folding, budgets were getting smaller, staffs were getting smaller, and they had a hiring freeze. So she just wanted to see if I would be interested in full time. It's like, sure. And it took months because I think I was there freelance for about 8 months, 8 or 9 months
oh wow.
before I got hired full time.
Okay. Well, that still turned out better than I think you thought it was
Yeah,
going to,
it
right?
still
So
turned out
that's
pretty good.
good.
I can't complain. Um, and yeah, it's been just a really amazing experience ever since.
Do you
I've
remember your
had more
first?
opportunities there. I worked at all sections of the magazine.
That's good. Yeah, I think that helps a lot if you know if you know all of it. It
Yeah,
helps.
it does. It does.
Do you remember your first big shoot that you did or your first big assignment that you had?
Gosh, I
Was
don't
there any
know
of
if
them
it
that
was
made you
my
nervous, I guess? Like, was the first thing you're like,
I
oh,
don't know if it was my first assignment. I'm trying to remember I think there were some. I always forget the order of things. There were some. This was back in 2007, I think, and 2007 or eight, and we Essence was photographing different political leaders. So I got to assign a photographer to photograph Hillary Clinton,
okay.
um, and some other. I think that she was probably my first big political figure that I was able to assign.
How's that work? When you assign, do they have say in who the photographer is, or do you guys just go with who you feel comfortable with?
It depends on who the person is.
Yeah.
Sometimes higher profile celebrities just have saying who the photographer is. We say, oh, here's the photographers that we use or that we like. And sometimes I think if they've had an experience that they don't really want to relive, they
Yeah.
may say, oh no, or they'll pick through, like you'll give a couple of choices and they'll pick, but it really just depends. With Hillary, I think there were a couple of photographers we had in mind. David Burnett ultimately shot her for Essence, and he was great because he's photographed quite a few political figures and presidents. Also, we had very little time.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it was like they told us 20 minutes, and I think we had 10 minutes.
Yeah. Sounds about right.
So everything in those instances, everything has to be pre-arranged, pre-set up. There's a lot of planning, the location, everything.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I've had a few of those where you go in, you basically, they're walking in, and if you have 10 minutes, you're lucky. You're like, oh.
Yeah, 10 minutes is, I haven't been on the Obama shoots that Essence did, but I've heard that, he's come in and it's like within 5 minutes he's done.
Oh yeah. Were you on the Michelle Obama shoot?
The last one, yes.
Okay. Was there a difference between, I'm thinking about two political women, between Clinton and Michelle Obama? Although she's not as political, she's more like, I guess, activist more thing, but.
No, I don't think so. I mean, they each all have, their, I don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't think so. And I think with Hillary was senator at the time when Essence photographed her. So she was still working.
Oh,
so yeah. Like she's running for office and she's working at the same time.
God, that's a lot to handle. And a photo shoot.
Yeah.
And around the country.
With Michelle Obama, she was, President Obama was already out of the office.
Right.
So we had a little more time with her. I think we ended up having her for like maybe 40 minutes.
Oh, wow.
And it was just carefree and free. I think the times that she's been photographed before by either Essence or other publications, when she was in the White House, it's very kind of rigid and you have certain, you're on the White House schedule.
Right. Yeah, I can see that. Have you ever had one where you guys say had a photographer or a budget? So let's go with the budget. So you have a budget in mind. I'm just to make it easy, say it's $1,000 for the photographer, whatever. And the celebrity or whoever you're shooting goes, no, I want this photographer. And that photographer is like $8,000. Have you had something where there's the photographer that they want to use is way over the budget that the magazine is planning?
Oh yeah, then it's a lot of pushback just because it's a publication. Publications don't have huge budgets, or you're working with the photographer and you're like, look, this is my budget, or I have to get approval from a higher up. It's just like any corporate, you go through a chain of command.
Yeah, because I was just wondering if you say you pick, like, we just say, David Burnett. Say you had, David Burnett's going to shoot this, and go, well, I want Stephen Meisel to shoot it. He's my photographer. I would assume there's a difference in pricing that would go on there.
Yes and no. It really depends. I think there's certain photographers who may get a slightly higher rate, but for the most part, most magazines, and I know newspapers, their rate's the rate.
Right.
Like, I know if you photograph something for the New York Times, the rate is the rate, doesn't change. Doesn't matter who you are.
Well, I guess that's good.
So it's just like, I think it's an even fitting, even billing.
Yeah. All right. So that's good. So did most of the time you guys handle hair, makeup, clothing, styling, and all that stuff as well?
Yes. If it's a celebrity talent, usually they have preferred glam that they work with. So you're working with their glam.
Okay. So what's your favorite part about?
A lot of times at Essence and other publications, they have in-house like stylists or fashion
Oh
editors or
yeah, yeah.
stylists, and who will work on styling the talent. If it's a model, definitely it's in-house.
Yeah.
Sometimes, maybe you may farm out to an outside stylist if your fashion team is super busy prepping for many different things.
Right.
Because a lot of times you might have multiple shoots going on at the same time frame.
How do you handle all that? Is that just chaotic?
You have to be detailed oriented, organized. You have a good team that you work with. There was one issue that I probably produced like 12 to 15 shoots at one time for this one issue.
Wow.
And that was anything from bigger, like a celebrity profile, to a real people portrait. I'm doing a fitness, a food, because it was a lifestyle magazine. We covered different
Right.
genres.
Wow. That's a lot going on at one time for one person to handle.
It's a lot, and you delegate. Luckily, I wasn't the only photo editor, so there was an intern who was helping out, an assistant.
Well, that's good. Well, thank God for
Yeah.
that.
But it's a lot, and you really have to just be organized and detailed oriented, and making sure all the ducks in a row. Some things are quite simple, where I'm just I need a photographer in Iowa to go to photograph someone at their home. That's pretty self-explanatory, but you still
Right.
have to have a conversation with the photographer so that they know what you're looking for with the subject, so they know what to wear. Can you send me pictures of your clothes so we can just make sure everything's coordinated? And
Right.
a
Okay.
lot of planning.
How do you handle stuff that just pops up last second? So say you're getting ready to send it out to be published and some major event happens. Somebody dies that's important, or
Oh,
some
we had
major
that.
world event.
I guess the biggest one that happened was Whitney Houston.
Oh yeah.
And because she was such um, a fan of the brand, and we were, followed her career from the beginning. Um, if I can remember correctly, when she passed away, it was the week we were closing
Oh,
the issue, and we had to do a whole special issue at the same time so that it couldn't make it in the newsstand, make it in the issue at the same time.
right. Wow. How
And,
much
and
extra
then
time
at
that
that time,
costs
it's
you?
just like all hands on deck. You get a call. It's on, it could be a Saturday, and you're like, this happened. We need all hands on deck.
Yeah. So even if you're like off visiting somebody, you have to get on a plane or get in the car and head to the
Or
office
at
kind of
least,
thing.
hopefully you have your computer with you.
Yeah. God, wow. You end up staying up all night and all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff.
Usually, with those kind of things, they didn't happen that often for the print publication. I think web is different because, things happen. I remember being at a Corbis party when Corbis was still around. They had a
Right.
summer party, and James Gandolfini passed away.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And people were on their phones getting texts, like, and you saw people rushing out. They got to go back to work because they worked for either a newspaper or a weekly. And me and a colleague were like, oh, I guess it's not a demographic, so we feel bad, but we don't have to leave the
Right.
party.
Well, that worked out for you then.
But, you do see that, because especially if web, you're trying to push that content out constantly.
Does I haven't looked at most magazines lately. So is Essence, did it go to all online or is it stayed print?
No, right now, they're still print,
Okay.
but
All
they
right.
have a huge web presence.
Yeah, I would think. Yeah, I don't even know which magazines are still printing and which aren't anymore because I haven't looked at a lot lately.
It's every year, like few months, you hear of someone just going all digital. And there's
Yeah.
quite a few, and they're still prospering, and they're producing original content.
I guess that's good. I noticed newspapers are doing that because I'll look up something on my phone and it'll give me an article or something. I'll go look at it. Like, if you'd like to read the rest of this article, and it gives you like the
A
first paragraph.
newspaper like New York Times, I think, was one of the first ones was it, or Washington Post, where they had a paywall.
Oh yeah.
So, you know, you may get a free article here and there, but I think New York Times, you get a few free articles a month. Otherwise, you have to pay for it.
Yeah, I think it was New York Times. I was trying to read something and it was like, this is your last free article for the month or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Like, if you'd like to get a subscription, I don't even remember what it was. I don't remember what it was, but I think it was literally hardly anything. And it wasn't very expensive. So if you want it, not too bad. Probably cheaper than the newspaper, I guess. Maybe.
Yeah, well, it's easier because you can just like, you wake up in the morning, log in, and start reading. It's the same thing that's going to be in the newspaper. You might get a little more original content, some
Yeah.
like
But you don't get
special.
the Sunday paper with all the flyers and stuff in it.
Oh, that's true.
I used to love that one as a kid, especially around Christmas. Like, all right, hey, where's
You
the
get the
like Toys R
comic,
Us?
you get the flyers. You're like, oh, we're gonna go to this store. We're gonna get this store. Mom,
Yep.
look at all the toys that I want.
Yeah, exactly. My parents, I don't think were overly thrilled about it. But so when it came to covers, you've worked with, it looked like you worked with just about everybody you can think of. I mean, there was what, Oprah, Michelle Obama, Janet Jackson, um, God, I can't even remember. Chadwick Boseman, I think, Michael
Yeah,
B.
movie
Jordan.
the Black Panther. Some of the cast, they had
Yeah.
Google
Did you get to
covers.
go on all those shoots?
For the most part, most of them, not all of, I haven't done all of, sometimes I would um, just produce a shoot, and then at the time I would have a different boss and they would go on the shoots. But for those, most of those I went on.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's still a lot of work though.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I think that's the one thing a lot of people don't get. It's like, oh, you're gonna meet this, you got to meet this person. Like, yeah, well, I literally, because I've been on shoots where you just go, yeah, I met them, but they were over there. We shook hands when they came in or whatever. And then from that
That's
point
about
on, it was
it.
just like boom, 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 shoot, get them out. And that was the whole deal. So it's not like we're hanging out with each other later,
No,
having
not at
dinner.
all.
So were there any ones that you wanted to be on that you told you couldn't, or were there certain ones you're like, yeah, I'm going to be on that
I
shoot?
probably, the only one that I probably would have wanted to be on was when they photographed the Obamas at the White House.
Oh yeah. I
That would
can
have been
understand that
like
one. Yeah, that would have been a cool shoot
amazing.
just to be able to go to the White House.
But you know, my boss did that one, so
Yeah, I think if I was your boss too, I'd be like, yeah, that's my shoot.
pretty much.
Yeah, you can stay. So what are you doing now? So you're no longer at Essence, is that right?
I'm no longer there now.
Okay, so what's going on with you now in your world? What you been doing?
So I've just been freelance. I've been doing a lot of portfolio development with photographers. Also, in the summer, I did a project, my own artwork with Macy's. I designed or created the artwork for their store reopening. After, you know, we're in the time of COVID and all these stores have been closed. So Macy's they started to reopen their stores the end of June, slowly because each state has different guidelines.
Right.
So the New York store, their flagship store in Herald Square, reopened the end of June, and I created artwork that went in all the store windows.
That's pretty
Like,
cool.
and then it also went into the Chicago and San Francisco stores when they reopened later in the
Wow.
summer.
So how'd you get that? How'd that pop up?
Um, oh gosh, it was actually I met the she used to be the Windows director at Macy's. She left and works for a design agency that Macy's sometimes uses. And
Okay.
she called me looking for some artwork.
That's pretty cool.
Basically, either for me to create something or maybe I creative direct something, and I created it.
That's nice. So did you have some kind of guidance on what they wanted, or
Yeah,
was it
oh
all
yeah,
up to you?
I met with her team and the Macy's team, and they told me what they were looking for. There was an idea already in place, and I kind of took it from there and gave them a couple of different options, and then they settled on the one that ended up being used.
So what'd you end up with using? What does it look like?
It's oh, let me see if I can show it to you.
Yeah, let me see if I can make sure I can let you show your screen. Have you been doing a lot of artwork since this whole lockdown thing?
I Yes and no. Like I've been just kind of creating sketches and doing some photo illustrations, but nothing. The beginning of COVID, I didn't want to do anything. I was just like in this funk, and
Yeah.
this kind of helped pull me out of that too.
Yeah, I'm sure. Work always helps, I think. Gets you out of a little bit of a funk sometimes. Hey, all right, cool.
So this was the finished windows, and then
All right, I'm
I'm
getting,
seeing.
maybe, can you pull it? I don't know if you can pull it. There we go. Okay. Well, now it's disappeared.
Oh, okay. I'm in the wrong window. I'm looking at the wrong window. That's it.
You did something weird. It's like it all, there we go. Oh, cool.
So this is kind of the finished artwork.
Nice.
But what they wanted was to show kind of like the city's been through, this was after COVID, there's a lot of civil unrest, and they just
Hmm.
wanted to show that, Macy's is standing behind their customers, and that we created the heart hands just to say that, we love you, and then in all different skin tones, and
Oh,
then
nice.
they used it throughout different ways. They broke it up. And then they created these 3D hands,
Oh, wow.
and there's 6 windows, or 6 windows where each one has a different hand and skin tone. So, or 3 windows, I think.
How do they create those?
They have the in-house design team. They build. If you look at any of those windows, they have like a whole in-house warehouse
Right.
that does
Okay.
stuff, or like even the design team that they hired to do this, has a whole like setup.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
So I've been, trying to explore my own work, doing some production work for some like photographers and reps and clients that come up. Um, so it's been fun. It's been fun exploring, my own projects.
Have you had any shoots since this whole
I
COVID thing?
haven't I haven't physically been on any shoots. There've been a couple that I either helped in the production process, or helped a photographer with. But I haven't been on any.
Okay. Yeah, I've been on a few. It's fun wearing a mask all day long.
Yeah, yeah. I can't imagine. I can't imagine doing that. Oh, okay,
No.
I'll stop the share.
You come up with ways to just start drinking something away from people just so you can take it off for a minute. It's like, let me have some water just so I can take this mask off for a second. Just to,
Yeah, no, it's luckily the couple of shoots that I've been involved with, they've been very small
yeah.
and small teams. So that's good. Nothing big. I'm kind of like, part of me is apprehensive having a big shoot again, because I don't want to go through the whole rigmarole of like the safety protocols,
Oh,
and
yeah.
it's just part of the game.
Yeah. I think they have people now that their whole job is just to be on set, making sure everybody's doing what they're supposed
Yeah,
to
there's
do.
COVID safety officers now,
Yeah.
especially if you're on a big shoot. And some states, I know California, I think, requires it on large shoots, and
Yeah.
anything, usually film and video, definitely.
Yeah. So, God, well, there's a whole nother job for somebody.
It's great. Well, it's created a whole new thing, and you can go and get there's courses you can take online that will allow you to become they call it a COVID compliance officer or safety officer.
Yeah. I wonder how long that'll last. You think that'll be like a It can't be a
Probably,
thing
I
forever.
imagine it's like a 6 month or a year, like every 6 months you have to have it renewed
I'm
or
just
something.
wondering how long they're going to make you have one, you know?
Oh, I don't know.
Because I
I,
can't imagine like maybe 3, 4 years from now, you're still going to have one on set. I would hope not.
I hope not, but I think there's certain things that the safety aspect is going to stay around for a long time.
Yeah, I think you're probably right about that.
I think even if they don't have a compliance officer, you'll start to have more like cleansing supplies on sets, hand sanitizers. I think those aren't going away.
Yeah, I've noticed we've had clients that come in and they want, when we're estimating shoots, they go, well, we don't have a lot of money because, business has dropped or whatever because of COVID. And I'm like, well, we have to do all this extra stuff now
Yeah, that costs
because of it.
money.
So it's harder to make it a cheaper shoot when we have to add all this extra stuff in there. But I guess the only thing that saves it if it's on location and the producers or art directors stay where they are in their office and then you Zoom it or live stream it or whatever.
Well,
Maybe
I
that saves some
talked
cash.
to an art, well, she's not an art producer. I forgot her exact title, but she works in an agency. She's like probably chief of operations or something like that. But she said on all of their shoots that they've been doing for their clients, they haven't been sending the art director or the art producer. Everything's been remote. Like it's just the photographer and the photographer's team, the talent.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been hearing that too. Some it's kind of varied. It's about half and half from what I've been hearing. Like half are staying away and just doing it remote, and then there are another half that are going, but they're literally sitting so far apart from each other that they can't. I think they have to scream at each other at lunch if they want to talk. So you
You're
just don't talk,
doing
or you eat in
it.
your car. Somebody told me, yeah, they had a shoot and they were eating in their car, during lunch. So when they
Oh, I've
broke
heard
lunch,
stories like
they're
that.
glad to go eat in their car to stay away from each other.
Or you stagger lunch. Like now with the catering, there's no open containers. There's like everything is either boxed or already packaged.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've
Which,
seen stuff where it's like someone had a sign where it said, if you touch this, like, it's craft services. If you touch it, you take it. Like, don't put
right.
it back. You can't just browse.
Kind of like you break it, you bought it. It's the same thing. You touch it, you keep it,
Yep.
kind of a deal, I guess. So when you left Essence and you started doing your own thing, like the portfolio reviews and that kind of thing, how do people find you to do that? Were you just reaching out or did you put it up
Well, I've
on?
been doing portfolio reviews even while I was at Essence with
Okay.
different organizations. So those organizations kept calling me.
All
And
right.
I think when they figured it out during COVID, oh, we can do these virtual reviews. Um, that was a big thing. I've gotten a few recommendations from other people for some new things that came up. But a lot of the organizations I had already worked with before.
Okay. Is that something you like doing, the portfolio reviews?
Actually, I love doing portfolio reviews. I think, especially when it's, I like kind of helping guide some younger photographers who are starting out because sometimes you're confused. You don't know, you have too much stuff in your book, you have too little, like the book is like all over the place. So if you can give someone a little bit of guidance and help steer them in the right direction, I like doing that.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing. I had a few people when I first started out who helped me, and they just did it because it was, and they were believe it or not, they were from modeling agencies. Because when I first started out, I had no clue. I thought, well, if I start shooting for these modeling agencies, then I can start shooting for bigger modeling agencies and shooting their models, and then that'll lead to the magazines, which that'll lead to like whatever campaigns. And I had no clue what I was doing. But it was literally two agency owners who told me the first one was your book has no rhythm to it. It has no story to it. It's just a collection of pictures in random order. Because I had no idea. I thought, well, I like this one best. I'll put it in here and I'll throw this one in here because I like it second best, and just went down. I didn't try and make it flow, make it have a good feel
Yeah, I
to
should
it.
have a flow.
Yeah. So they were like, you need to have a flow to this. And I was like, I don't even know what you're talking about. And so I finally figured that out. And then I had another one tell me they liked my images, but my models, my hair and makeup, my styling needed a lot of work. So my photography was good, my lighting was good, whatever, composition, but the rest of it needed help. And that's when I learned it's not all me. It has a lot to
No, it's
do
a
with everything else
team.
I'm shooting.
I always tell photographers, like, I've had that instance where I met a photographer, and the lighting, the photography was good, but I'm like, your styling is bringing it down.
Mm-hmm.
And once you work with, once you get that to, not even get it to a point, but develop an eye, because I think as a photographer, you need to have an eye for what's good taste in styling. Otherwise, if you don't, like, it's never going to go anywhere.
Have you had any portfolio reviews where, say, the photographer shows you the book and like, this is amazing, you love it almost from the beginning, and you end up hiring them for something in essence sometime in the next 6 months or something like that?
I've hired photographers from portfolio reviews. Sometimes it's not that quick. And I always tell everyone that, especially when I was working full time, that, I like your work. I think it's great, but it may not happen right away. It's
Yeah.
just, sometimes it's timing. Sometimes it's like the right thing has to come along, whatever the parameters, but I've hired plenty of photographers and reviews.
Have you
And I've
ever?
also made recommendations because I've met photographers whose work necessarily didn't fit into the aesthetic that I was looking for, but I liked it, and I could make recommendations. Oh, this is the person you need to speak to, or not just other publications. Like, luckily, because I went to an art school, I have friends who are, like, creative directors at ad agencies, creative
Right.
directors in, like, record labels. So, I know a lot of people, so I can kind of help. If I like you, I'll recommend you.
That's good. So you're a good person to have review a portfolio then, it sounds like, if you're any good. So have you had one, speaking of, yeah, if you're any good. So have you had one where you looked at a portfolio and just like, this is not going to happen ever. This person should probably move on?
I always, because I remember what it was like for me to be on the other side. And I think you, I always try to find the positive in everyone's work. So,
Yeah.
like, yeah, you just look at it and you're like, oh, it's okay, or it's not really doing anything. But there's certain things that, like, they do okay, they do well, or they do
Right.
okay, that if they develop that, then they can go more. So I try to steer them in a direction where they're like, okay, don't go left, but you need to go right and just work on this stuff.
Well, that's nice.
Like,
Yeah.
I really just, I think I haven't seen anyone's book where it's like, oh my God, just give it up. I've never done that. But you can steer direction. And then even, like, there was someone I met a couple of years ago, who, if you talk to her now, she's like, oh, I wasn't ready then. Like,
Yeah.
she was a friend who left one career who always did photography, and she's like, I'm going to develop for, be a photographer full time, and had no clue.
Oh,
And she came and showed me her book, and I was like, okay, you need to do this, you need to assist, you need to work on this, your lighting needs to be this. And now, like, she's off, like, getting assignments from major publications.
oh, wow.
And when I talked to her, I follow her work, and she's like, oh, when I met you, like, a couple of years ago, I wasn't, if I knew what I know now, I probably wouldn't have met you. But
Right.
then I said, if you didn't do that, you wouldn't be where you are today either.
Yeah, that's
So it
true.
helped steer her in a direction, and she started assisting some photographers and really learning more just about lighting and studio work, and just how you deal with the set and a client at the same time.
Yeah, that's all important stuff. Do you do a lot now? I mean, is that something you want to get into more with the portfolio reviews? Or are you looking to go back into doing something different or more into the design? Or what are you looking to do now that you're not at Essence anymore?
I like doing, I've been doing a lot of portfolio reviews and I really do like that. I want to continue that. Um, I've been doing some juries and judging for different, like, photo competitions and grants and things like
Yeah.
that. And I like doing that as well. But I think the portfolio reviews and somehow like guidance is kind of my strong suit. Like it's something that I think I could give back and help people, grow in their work.
So would you want to be an agent or rep?
Everyone says that to me from like even before I went into even before I went into editorial, everyone's like, "Oh, you should be an agent. You're really good." And I think it's because I worked with agents before,
Right.
like working with under them, that they think I could do that. And I was like, I don't know. It's being an agent's a lot of work.
Yeah, but it sounds like you like it. I mean, I don't know about the whole pushing to get the jobs, but it sounds like you like the development part of it.
Maybe it's like, yeah, maybe it's more developing the portfolio and marketing. I mean, it could be. I've had a lot of friends tell me that.
Yeah.
And recently they're like, you're really good at it. And you know a lot of photographers and a lot of people. And you're just good at giving that kind of guidance.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like that would be something that would be good. But then you got the whole other end, I guess, where you have to work with the agencies or the magazines, and you got to negotiate the rates, and you got to put up with all the other stuff, and like, hey, let's do the promotional. All the stuff you got to
Yeah.
do.
And it's a lot. And then just with the state of the like world where it is right now in the economy, it's
Yeah,
like how much stuff is really happening.
right.
I know it's slowly changing and things are kind of slowly picking up, but yeah, I
Well, I
don't
guess
know.
you could always do the photo consultant kind of gig, and
Yeah, and it seems like a lot of people that I know kind of like with my background or, either worked in they're photo editors at a magazine or newspaper, kind of go into consulting. And I've been doing that on my own anyway, so
yeah.
it's not, I guess, a named business.
What about shooting? Do you shoot anymore?
Um, Not a lot,
Yeah.
to be honest. Not as much as I think. Every few months, I'm like, oh, I'm going to start shooting. And I use my iPhone as my sketch kind of
Yeah.
notebook. And
Okay.
then like, I'll, do something every now and then. So, but it's really not as much as I would like to.
Yeah, I can understand that. It's kind of the same way I'm with playing guitar. I want to play more. I played a lot when I was in college, and now I have two of them sitting on the wall, and I go, I
I
picked it
know
up
when
for a
I was
minute
working
today.
full time, I was like, oh, I'm going to do this. I'm going to like, get together with some people over the weekend and we're going to shoot. And then I'm like, I'm tired. I've been working all day and night and
Yeah, I
have
have
to go
noticed that
break.
if I'm shooting, say I have like a couple of weeks straight of shooting, I don't want to shoot. Like I just like I don't want to see the camera when I get home on the weekends, so I just put it away. But if I go for a while without shooting, then I want to grab it and start shooting again. But if it's something where I've worked like every day that week shooting, that weekend, I'm not interested in taking any
Yeah.
pictures.
I've done different creative outlets throughout the years while I've been working that's not photography related. For like, I took some textile classes and weaving classes at the Fashion Institute of
Oh
Technology.
wow.
Like I was into like sewing for a while, so I was like sewing and quilting. I took some quilting classes. So I was always doing something creative, just
Yeah.
it might not have been photography at the
Were you
time.
making clothes when you were sewing, or were you making the
Oh, when
clothes?
I got into sewing, I haven't sewn in a long time, but I was like, it started off making clothes. And then I got into the quilting. I would make pillows and small little, like, with quilting, I was always, and I think it's the Gemini in me, I get like, I remember as a kid, I would go from one thing to another. I had a stamp collection. I had this. And my mom's like, just pick something. I'm like, but I have to try it all.
Yeah. Well, trying it out is good because then you figure out what you really like or what
So
you don't
yeah, I
like so
still
much.
draw, and then like I kept getting better and better. I would like make something, I was making dresses. I made some outfits for a couple of like family members and friends,
Wow.
and um, then that led to something else. And then I really got into textiles. I wanted to be like a surface artist, a surface design artist, or textile artist, and that led to something else.
Wow. You do stay busy doing creative stuff. That's good. It's better than sitting around being bored. Do you have a hobby?
I read. I've been doing a like really, I guess, trying to get better at my Photoshop skills and doing some photo illustration and collaging.
Do you use InDesign or Illustrator?
I use Illustrator. Some InDesign, like I know it, but I wouldn't say I'm like an InDesign expert at all. Like I can do a simple layout.
Yeah, I don't think I've opened InDesign. I haven't really messed with it. Illustrator I've messed with a little bit, but not nearly as much. So I'm more a Photoshop, but I'd like to learn those two a little more. And this whole COVID lockdown thing, I thought, well, I'm going to learn all kinds of stuff. I'm going to play guitar more. I'm going to learn to do more Photoshop work, InDesign work, and I ended up doing everything else. But I still kept busy working. It's just I was working on like redoing the site or shooting new stuff or whatever. So I ended up not doing any of the stuff I thought I was going to do when I had nothing to
I
do.
know I had started like there was quite a few like organizations offering like free classes on like whatever you wanted to know about.
Oh yeah,
And I said, I'm going to do that. And I was like, oh, but then I have to commit to a time and a place. And even though it's going to be virtual, I was like, yeah, I'm not going to do that.
yeah. That's just something about virtual just doesn't work for me with stuff like that.
I think I can't imagine being a student now and being in a virtual kind of environment. I don't think I would be good at that.
No, I wouldn't either. And my daughter's doing it now, and she hates it. She likes the fact that she can get up 2 hours later because school starts a little later, and she doesn't have to drive to school, so she can get up later. But I mean, she's sitting in front of a computer all day, and then you have homework where you have to sit in front of the computer to do your
Yeah,
homework. And
it's not good.
no, I would not want to do it. And then I saw that Tony Robinson, has those huge events where he has all these people come and all this stuff and does a big thing with them. He's doing that virtually now. Like, and I don't see how that works. I haven't looked at it, but I can't imagine sitting there in front of my desk trying to get all hyped
Yeah,
up like you see
like
he
in
does.
all the Zoom meetings and like if I have another Zoom meeting, like
Yeah. Yeah. My wife she's working from home. So she has a Zoom meeting every morning at 9:30. Then she meets with her assistant after that on Zoom, and then there's like a 12 or 12:30 almost every day, and then she has then back to her assistant, then back to like a 4 or 5 or something like that. She has another one
so
every
how are you
day.
getting work done?
We set her up an office in the bedroom, so she has a desk and her monitor and all that stuff in there. So my office stayed my office, so I didn't have to give it
Okay.
up. Thank God. As soon as she said I'm working from home, I was like, oh hell, what are we doing now?
That's going to be a problem for a lot of people. Luckily, I mean, just because I'm not working full time, I'm not having daily meetings, but I do have quite a few meetings, either meeting with potential clients and um, stuff like that. And then after a while, it's just like, I just want to meet someone in person.
Yeah, I know, me too. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Like my wife, Tammy, she just went out to dinner, or not to dinner. She went out to lunch yesterday with the CEO of her company. First time she'd been out and had been out anywhere, I think, with anybody other than her immediate family, us. That's the first time she'd been out and had contact with anybody who wasn't just the people she lives in the house with, without a mask
Wow.
on.
Oh, yeah, since March.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
I
So
think my first outing
I mean, we've been out, but she hadn't been out with anybody other than us, and we've
Oh
only been
yeah,
out, like
without,
sat
like
outside.
I've been out, like I would go out in my neighborhood, walk, I would go to the grocery store. I was in between going to pick up my groceries and then having them delivered.
Yeah.
Um, and then I guess in June, when I started working on the Macy's project, um, they had just started to open up like part of New York where I think they called it makers or manufacturers could go back to work,
All right.
like with limited capacity. And the design group that called me, they were like, would you come into the office for a meeting? I was like, on Zoom? And it's like, no, I'll do it. And it was a small meeting with just like 3 people and a couple of people on video. But it got me, I was like, okay, this is the first time I ventured outside of my neighborhood.
Yeah. Yeah. She came over yesterday. She was completely disoriented on what day it was, what was going on, if she was going to miss something with her Zoom calls and all. She's like, because haven't been out of the house.
Yeah, like,
So,
and I haven't been to a restaurant. I think I went to have a pedicure for the first time, like in August.
yeah. Yeah. I'm just ready for this to be over. But all right. So I'm going to last question. What's the strangest, most interesting thing that's happened to you since you've started this whole journey in this business?
I don't know if it's strange. I would call it fun and interesting. I had Janet Jackson's backup dancers teach me some choreography.
Really?
Yeah, it was simple. I can dance, but I can't do choreography.
Okay. I get that.
And they were trying to teach me these simple moves, and I had 2 left feet, but it was fun. So when Janet, we finished, I think she was changing to her next outfit and doing makeup changes. So they were teaching me the choreography. And when the shoot was over and done, she was leaving and she was so sweet and kind and nice. I told her that if she ever needed a backup dancer, I'm ready. That they taught me a few moves. I said, I'm not good, but I would give you enthusiasm. And she laughed.
Were they teaching you like to a specific song, or just did you have any music playing at the same time, or were they just teaching you the
Did we have,
steps?
'cause I think there was music. It was just general like background music, whatever was playing. Like, I think she came with her own playlist. So it might've been her playlist.
Okay.
And so they had downtime. They were just waiting for her because when she was being photographed, some of the shots were with her dancers.
Okay.
And it was just like we were hanging around. We had time.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. Very few people, I'm sure, can say that.
Yeah, I can say like Janet Jackson. I told her I could be a backup dancer.
You can
She was,
always just say, I danced with Janet Jackson's backup dancers.
that would have been
And
cool. Yeah.
yeah, and then nobody knows. They don't know that they just taught you some stuff. You can just say,
Nope, they just taught me some moves.
yeah,
We filmed it. I put it on my little social media.
that's very cool. When you shoot musicians, an artist like that, do you ever play like just their music the whole time, or do they always have other people that they're listening to? Or does it vary?
No, it varies. It varies. Like some people listen, like I'm trying to think. I believe she had her own playlist. Some people come in because their music gets them in the mood.
Right.
Like, so some people come in, they're like, oh, I have my own playlist. And it's like, okay, granted. Sometimes I try to pick something that's like, I'll ask at the beginning of before the photographer starts shooting, like if there's anything they want to hear.
Yeah.
You get a lot of Beyonce, no matter who it is, whether it's model, celebrity, everyone's like, oh, Beyonce. I think one of the second times I got to photograph Oprah, or have her photographed. I did kind of a Motown mix.
Oh yeah.
Like I just picked songs. I was like, oh, this seems like Oprah. And her team loved it. They were like, who picked the music? I was like, oh, I did. It's just like a Spotify mix that I found. And they were like, oh no, you should come to all our shoots and DJ.
You should tell them for the right price, you can work that out.
But true. But I always try to ask what they like. They're like, oh, Oprah likes Motown. So we're like, okay. And make sure you have Michael Jackson in there. It's like, okay, no problem.
Very cool. Well, Tracey, thank you so much for doing this. I really, really appreciate you being on here.
Thank you so much.
It was fun. And anybody watching, listening, if you like it, share it, thumbs up it, subscribe to it, whatever else you're supposed to do on these podcasts, do that so we can keep it rolling.